we'll go to a church now and we'll speak and we will read about Adam and Eve. God made them male and female, period, not comma.
Yeah.
And we'll teach just on creation, and I'll have multiple people that disagree with me at the end of it. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean it's only male and female? What about this and this and that at churches?
Yeah.
And that's when we began to realize these lies, this isn't actually a outside of the church issue.
No.
These lies are an inside of the church issue right now. And if everybody's so scared to declare what the truth is, then where's anybody going to be able to find the truth of what God's heart really is for humanity?
Hi, I'm Kris Vallotton, and welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we help you learn how to live fully alive, co-labor with God, and change the world. And today I have Cole Zick, who is, him and his wife, Caitlin, they actually lead Moral Revolution, which is a ministry dedicated to really kind of sexual purity.
Yep.
So, hey.
You forgot your favorite employee, too.
Oh, who else did I forget?
You forgot to say I'm your favorite employee.
Oh, yes, you are my
that
favorite
part of the introduction.
Employee.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, before we go on, tell us a little bit about you and Kate. Tell us about you guys.
So we have been married for 16 years, have 4 kids. We made 4 kids in 5 years.
Very good.
Yeah. You figure out what you're good at, and you do a lot of that
exactly.
in life.
Do it a lot.
And yes, we've been directing Moral Revolution. It's been over 5 years now. Before that, we were youth pastors in Sacramento. And that's the short of it. We are fully entrenched in youth sports in our personal life these days. And
how old are your kids?
12, 11, just turned 11, 8, and 7. We're right in the period where they're all having birthdays, so I have to actually think. So 12, 11, 8, 6, almost 7.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a busy house.
You got a busy house. You're leading Moral Revolution, part of Bethel, the Bethel team.
Yeah.
So, hey, what are you, we're in the middle of a moral mess in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we see, homosexuality, transgenderism, the hookup culture, these things are on the rise. There doesn't seem to be an end to the acceleration of, in my mind, what's, the immoral culture. What are you doing to help?
Yeah, there's a lot. There really isn't an area you can look and think, oh, that looks like we're winning there right now.
Not right now.
It feels like every area that you look. I really believe, and what our team prays a lot into, is the reset. I think that it's gotten to the point where I feel like something big is going to happen that is going to shock people and help them realize how lost they have been and woken them up.
Yeah.
A lot of what we've started to focus our efforts onto is declarations of truth. Mm-hmm. So, even a few years ago when we joined, we were making a lot of e-courses and creating resources, which we still do.
Yeah, of course.
But in the last, I would say probably 6 months to a year, we've been creating a lot of content that is about, we actually somebody needs to be stopping and saying, wait a second, this is what the truth actually is, because even the church is confused on that. So we've launched a campaign called Porn is Lying to You, where we're creating content and videos and resources around the reality that porn has actually not educated America well, and yet it has been the sex educator for the last 20 years. Yeah, exactly. The average kid finds it by 11 years old. That's what's informing kids about what sex is. Well, it's sowed a lot of lies into the belief system of minds and hearts. We're currently in the middle of a truth campaign. It's called Truth Is, and where we're creating videos and content around that declaration of, wait a second, here's what the fact of the matter is on this topic. And so really, I think the season that we're in, it ebbs and flows. And, we try not to react to culture, but we're in culture. And so a lot of what we're doing and we're creating is in response to. And the trends that we've seen, we'll go to a church now and we'll speak and we will read about Adam and Eve. God made them male and female, period, not comma.
Yeah.
And we'll teach just on creation. And I'll have multiple people that disagree with me at the end of it. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean it's only male and female? What about this and this and that at churches?
Yeah.
And that's when we began to realize these lies, this isn't actually a outside of the church issue.
No.
These lies are an inside of the church issue right now. And if everybody's so scared to declare what the truth is, then where's anybody going to be able to find the truth of what God's heart really is for humanity? And so we've definitely moved more into declaring and creating content that's centered around that, given that we feel like that's what the church needs right now, is it needs people to say, hey, here's what the Bible actually says, and we have to be willing to accept this.
Where do you think that people are getting their, quote, my truth? Where do you think it's, if their core values aren't coming from the Bible, and right now we're even talking about Christians, where do you think their core values are being generated from?
I think unequivocally social media. I mean, people like to say kids are spending all their time on screens. Adults are spending all their times on screens. Partway through COVID, one of the lines that Bill said in one of his messages that has stuck with me from that moment, and I think is very applicable to where we're at today, is he said, if you're spending all of your time reading the news and on social media, then your anxiety is self-inflicted.
Yeah, wow.
And I think that COVID supercharged bad theology, bad belief, bad ideas about humanity, bad belief systems about sexual identity, because we took the entire world and we put them in their house, and all they had was to be entertained by social media and other people's ideas. And when you get on the internet, ideas are passed off as fact.
Yeah.
And so now we have people's ideas and people's opinions, and we became dependent on being on a screen for entertainment. I would venture to say it's very rare for a Christian's time in the Word in a 24-hour period to outweigh a Christian's time on a screen.
Oh, I would say it's 99.999% of the time.
So if we're not here and all we're doing is looking at other people's ideas that they're passing off as fact, we have developed in the last 2 years a very distorted view of humanity, and it becomes humanism, really, because we've become so consumed with how I feel. I'm the God. I'm here. I'm who God is here to serve. It's this humanistic meshing of Christianity where we're convinced that we are the reason. And that idea that has even infiltrated the church comes with, well, if a good God would want you to be happy no matter what that means. This concept that a good God would want these things and would want you to pursue whatever you want. I really believe that it supercharged these last couple of years simply because of our media intake. I think that is, in my opinion, not that that's the root, but that it was almost like that was the fertilizer.
It's a platform.
Yeah, it was the platform that fertilized the soil, and it caused that grass to grow at an exponential rate.
1 John 4 says, when we see him, speaking of Christ, we'll become like him. But the challenge that you just, what you just said is, when you don't see him, we end up with a God in our image instead of becoming people who are made in God's image.
Exactly it.
So we have created our own image of God. We've created our own God, basically.
Yeah.
And we've taken away hell, so there's no repercussions for any of your actions or attitudes.
Yep, exactly.
And we've basically said, listen, you no matter, loving God wouldn't let you go to hell.
Yep.
And we've taken away all the ramifications of any behavior that you might have.
Exactly.
And what do you think's at the root of all this?
I think it's pretty standard in humans if it goes unchecked. Like my second son, Connor, we were at dinner, I don't know, this is a couple years ago, and Connor is my honest child, like embarrassingly so sometimes. Like
super transparent.
He's the one that we don't want him to know family secrets because everybody's going to know those.
Yeah.
And we're sitting at the dinner table, and my daughter looks at me, she goes, "Dad, you're the best dad in the world." And Connor goes, "No, he's not." And I'm dying to hear Connor's, I just laughed even at his response. And I go, what do you mean, buddy? Like, why am I not the best dad in the world? He goes, well, there's a lot of dads. How could we know you're the best one? Like, there's so many dads out there. And I go, well, what would it take for me to be the best dad in your mind? And he goes, well, you'd just have to give me whatever I wanted.
Oh, that's the best dad.
That'd be the best dad in his mind. He was 8 at the time or 9. In his mind, what it would take to be the best dad is for me to give him whatever I want. And I think that that's probably pretty common in an unchecked child who hasn't been taught, hasn't been loved, hasn't been disciplined, right? And so we talked through it and we used it as a teaching moment and we explained it. And he now realizes, oh yeah, a good dad takes me through hard challenges and teaches me and disciplines me. The problem, and so I think you have that as a human. Like we have that in us where at our core, we want what's ours when we're
selfish.
We're selfish.
Yeah.
I had to learn to be selfless.
Yeah.
I'm still learning to be selfless.
Yeah.
Like I was never more exposed than the first couple of years of my marriage and how selfish I was.
You were so sacrificial.
Oh man.
Until you got married.
Exactly.
And your wife asked you to do something. You're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm the head of this home.
Exactly. And then you have kids and you're like, wow, I thought I had the selfishness thing figured out and now I just made children. So I think that it's there. I think that when you then put everybody in a situation where we're now expected to get paid for doing nothing because COVID just taught us that. We can get paid and be at home and not actually work a full day.
Yeah.
We can. And now you start to see the videos that come out where you've got 22, 23, 30-year-olds even sitting there crying because their employer made them work an 8-hour day. I remember this video I watched this week. This young man sat there and in tears, my employer is putting me through unworkable work conditions. I had to work an 8-hour day.
Yeah, I had to go to work.
I thought, oh, dear Father.
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's at the core if we're not disciplined and we're not discipled, if we're not putting ourselves in a place where we're being discipled, where we're being challenged. I had to teach that thought process out of my 8-year-old son.
That's really good.
Actually, what makes me a good dad, kiddo, is that I'm always here for you and that I make you do your chores and that I wake you up for school and make you do things that you don't want to do. And yes, a part of that is I give you the things that you need and oftentimes the things that you want. But it's not just that. He had to be taught that. Totally. We right now have a culture that doesn't want that message.
Yeah.
And so if we don't want that message and we're spending our time consuming content, we're not spending our time engaging in relationships that are making us better, we've become our own echo chamber of theology.
It's true. And then our social media, whatever posts we follow, basically the algorithm tells us, oh, that's what you want to hear. And they just reinforce whether the lie or the truth. They reinforce what we already believe. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to shift subjects a little bit because this is probably the biggest challenge that parents are facing right now. When I was in high school, the big challenge was
World War I?
Drugs.
Oh.
What did you say?
I said World War I.
World War I. It was actually Korean War.
I'm just teasing.
I'm pretty close to that age. But nowadays, moms and dads are facing, Johnny thinks he's a girl. Mary has a girlfriend that she's involved with romantically. She's 15. Mm-hmm. And, what do you do? Like, I know you hear this every day, right? And this is part of the generation we're trying to shepherd and pastor and help, right? So what are some things you should do? And what are some, and I realize it's going to be individualized. Yeah. I get that. But what are some of the goals that you should have when your daughter comes home at 15 and says, hey, I'm dating another girl? Yeah. Your son comes home and says, I believe I'm a homosexual. Yeah. And we're talking about teenagers now. Yeah. What should, what do you, just let's begin the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick before I even get into some of the organic parts, just resources, Changed is a ministry that's a part of Bethel here, part of Moral Revolution. They've created some unbelievable content on this. We have a series of videos called the Thrive series. They're all free videos that you can watch from experts that speak directly to those types of questions. It'll give you a question in a video. So
good.
you can get to it from moralrevolution.com and link through Change, or you can go to changemovement.com. So if you want more on that, that's where I would tell you to start. You can start to consume a ton of content there.
So you actually have curriculum around and that are giving you intelligent answers.
Exactly.
And by the way, I want to just add a plug to that. The change movement is being led by former homosexuals.
Yeah, Ken and Elizabeth. Left that lifestyle.
Yeah, really, they led that lifestyle, and they really have some real good insight into how to speak to your kids.
Yeah. Now, on a more, like if you're like, I got a conversation I have to have today, and I don't have time to watch all that and to start it, I think that the key thing that parents need to remember is it really all comes back to identity.
Yes.
And affirming that identity. A lot of students right now are trying things out because it's the cool thing to try. Yeah. Their brains are undeveloped. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the equivalent of a kid trying out ding-dong ditching and then realizing that wasn't a good choice.
Yeah.
But there is that sense right now that it's so common to experiment that a kid isn't likely gay. They are, or even really feeling like that. They're just trying this out and going down that path. And so I really encourage parents to reaffirm identity. I think we have to remember and trust in the intelligent design of the Creator, that we know in our heart we were created for a man and a woman. And so reinforcing that in a loving way, I think, is really huge right now. I think listening, figuring out the why questions is what we always say. Start asking why questions. Why do you feel this way? What was the first time that you felt this way? What sparked this? Oftentimes, whether it's homosexuality, transgender, a sexually active teen, you find pornography is at the base of a lot of it. It's very rare to have a situation where pornography didn't come in early and then have an impact on that child's sexual belief and sexual experience. And so, the language, one of the other phrases that we've coined is you want to have a lot of discovery conversations. It's really easy as the parent to freak out. Like,
I'm going to tell you the way it ought to be.
Yeah, and that's not probably going to work.
Yeah.
Discovering what's going on in their heart, what led them to where they're at, why they feel what they feel right now. And I think letting go of having a finish line of completion in your own mind. Because a lot of times for a parent, it's like, oh man, they're a junior. I've got a year and a half to get this fixed. You have to discover their heart again, because if they're coming and telling you something you didn't know, that means you don't know where their heart's at. Yeah. And you have to rediscover that. So you got to go on this journey of discovery. Yes, absolutely. The goal is complete restoration in their sexuality to the way God designed it. The process to get there is one of discovery, one on affirming identity, and one of demonstrating to them what God's design is. I don't know if you even remember this conversation that you and I had, years ago. My oldest son had started to make friends with somebody that had gay parents. And we were trying to decide, like, what line do we draw here, right?
Yeah, and he's pretty young.
And he was young. He's 13 now. I think he was maybe 10 at the time. And I had called you one day and said, hey, I'd love to get your input on this. What do we do? And the advice you gave me I thought was really good is you said, you shouldn't ever be threatened by the artificial when he's getting the authentic at home. Yeah. And it actually gave us a lot of peace, and it's held true. 3-4 years later, my oldest is the one that's the most open with us. He talks to us about everything. He's got a very strong sense of right and wrong. And we definitely let him go into some situations that we maybe wouldn't have, trusting, God's design is screaming inside of all of us. We can't deny what the Holy Spirit placed in us.
Totally.
And he's coming home and he's seeing a loving father and a loving mother who love each other deeply. That's what his heart's going to cry out for. And so that would be the last thing I would say is finding out how to position your children in scenarios where they're able to see and experience God's design for relationships. If you're a single parent, you're not going to be able to demonstrate that in a marriage per se that you're in, but putting them in situations where they're able to see pastors or leaders or baseball coaches or sports coaches that demonstrate that, so that they're going to be drawn to that by nature of how they were created.
Yeah, and I would add to that, stay connected.
Yep.
I mean, the one thing that you don't want to do is break your connection with your teenagers, because then you lose the ability to influence them.
It's true, and it's so hard.
It is a full-time job to stay connected to teenagers,
especially when they're so busy. Like my oldest is 12, and he'll have practice 4 nights a week in some seasons of our life, and it's like, when do you even? We have to fight for it. Like we have to get up early and go work out with him. I don't want to work out with him, but I got to get up early and go work out with him just so I can find that point where we have an opportunity to talk.
So good. And I do think that what you said is so powerful. It's important that we speak truth to them in love, in an understanding way. Obviously, diplomacy is important. Staying connected is important. I remember when I've told the story many times, when Jason was going through like a 6-month depression. I finally caught him in the laundry room one day, closed the door, and said, what's going on? I'll cut the story short, but he said, Dad, I'm a homosexual. And I asked him why he thought he was homosexual, and I had no idea that that's what he was going through.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have predicted it. It was a long time ago, way before homosexuality was a thing, really. And he said, well, he told me he had oral sex with this kid, just ongoing.
Yep.
And I asked him, what does that have to do with you being a homosexual? And he said, well, I liked it. I said, well, if you masturbated, would you be a handsexual? We both had a laugh, and he said, well, no. I said, well, your bad behavior doesn't identify.
Yeah, that's great.
That's not who you are. It's what you've done.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that I look back now, and of course at that time, homosexuality wasn't being taught in the school system, and we didn't have any social media in those days. It was just the internet was just being birthed.
Yep.
And so, but I look at it now and I think, man, if Jay would not had a dad in our day, and then went to school and said, well, you could be a bisexual, homosexual, transsexual, pansexual, whatever else.
Yep.
I mean, I think it would have put him in 10 years of struggle before he found himself.
Absolutely.
So it's really important that we, know well the condition of our flocks, and that we do pay attention to what's going on.
Yep.
And that we have the courage to actually confront in a loving, kind way and say, what's going on? I love what you said. It's beautiful. Raising kids, it's tough.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done, by far. By far.
Yeah. What else would you say to parents that are watching? We're going to have so many parents watching this video.
I think you probably couldn't overemphasize connection.
Yeah.
And going after their heart. If you chase their heart, you'll get their life.
Yeah.
If you're trying to correct their life, you'll probably lose their heart. And it's really critical that
that's a fine line.
It is. I mean, by that I don't mean don't correct. Mm-hmm. I feel there's seasons where I'm like, gosh, I feel like all I did today was correct all day long. Seriously, like that feels like all I did. I look at my kid, do you like being in trouble all day? Yeah. No, I don't like having you be in trouble all day.
Exactly.
Can we fix this? Exactly.
Can you just behave and give us both a break?
Can you not slap your brother just for looking at you, please? But I think and the busier our culture gets, the harder connection is, the harder chasing their heart becomes. Yeah. And the more creative you have to be in ways that you do it. Yeah. Like I'll just vulnerably use an example from our own life. Like I feel right now, I try to on a weekly basis assess where I'm at with each kid. Like, do I feel connected with him? Do I feel connected with my daughter? Do I feel, and trying to assess that. I'm looking at this,
that's wise.
The season ahead. And because I'll look and say, I don't feel connected with Cade. Yeah. Hey, Cade, you want to go out and play soccer for 20 minutes because he loves to play soccer, and we'll go kick the ball around, and try to do a weekly check-in with 4 kids, it's really tough.
It's hard
you know,
at those ages too.
At those ages. And so, like, one of the things we're doing right now is all 3 of my boys are really into sports.
Yeah.
You know, and they have practices in January. Their sports all start back up again after when we get through the holiday seasons. You know, I don't know when this is, you know, when people are going to watch this, but when we're recording it, we're in a nice lull.
Yeah.
This storm is coming.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking ahead like, oh man, we're not going to be able to connect a ton because of practices. So I actually went and looked at YMCA memberships today because my kids love to go there. And I thought, well, what if we all do the Y together before school 3 days a week? You know, and so I'm trying to look ahead at where I can make sure to do this because I don't want to be caught off guard with a question or a situation or a confession that I don't have the relational connection to steward that moment.
That's really good. We got about 5 minutes, and I'd like to ask you a question. How do I create, because what we've talked about right now is kind of reacting or responding to, you know, a negative culture, right? Homosexuality, transgenderism, we have all this craziness. How do you create a healthy sexual culture that your kids can grow up being nurtured in healthy sexuality in your home? What is that? What's it mean?
Yeah, that's something we do a lot of teaching on. We actually created a course specifically for this. We have a couple of them actually, and the thing that we to simplify hours of content and teaching that you know, you could do a whole seminar on this, but you want to get rid of the idea of the talk. Like that's probably the worst thing that ever happened. The talk. Sex. Oh man, like I'm
gonna sit your kid down and
like do we only talk about sex once a year?
So good.
Like we have to get rid of the idea of the talk. I mean, that has absolutely obliterated the ability for a parent to teach a kid a healthy sexual belief system.
Yeah, just so that people don't misunderstand, because I know your message and I know you. We're not saying you shouldn't have a talk.
You should have countless talks. We're talking about a culture.
Exactly.
Right? Like, whenever we do this, when we're speaking or we do an in-person session, I'll always ask everybody in the room, how many of you had a great home life where your parents talked about sex in a healthy way all the time? Raise your hand. Nobody raises their hand.
Exactly.
And the next question is, well, how did that silence work for you?
Yeah, how'd it work out?
And everybody in the room, it left me feeling like I didn't know answers. I had to figure things out on my own. Well, for us, when we didn't know what to do, you talk to a friend. Now they go to Google.
Which is like them being it's like their worst friend you'd ever want them to talk to.
Absolutely. Almost 80% of pornography is now violent. Exodus Cry did a documentary called Raised on Porn, and one of the statistics they found is that for a kid who is surfing for pornography, let's just say a 13-year-old that accidentally found it, it would take him 13 minutes of clicking through to get to non-violent porn. So if we don't create an environment in our home where my kid can ask any question, anytime, using any language that he wants, he's going to go to the internet. She's going to go to the internet. And what they're going to find is going to be detrimental to their ability to have a healthy marriage 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road.
How do you initiate? Like, here's the challenge, right? If you wait till your kids are 15 and you're like, okay, we're going to have a healthy culture now. The challenge is that that's
got to start early.
Got to start early.
Yeah, so we encourage people, again, back to the line, discovery conversations.
Yeah.
So we started these conversations. We've started actually with all of our kids. You know, my youngest was probably 4.
Yeah.
You know, we started having these conversations. Yeah, you're not giving them all the information.
Yeah.
You're asking questions about what they currently know.
Yeah.
And then you're just establishing. When we talk about this, there's no discomfort. Like my oldest came home when he was in 4th or 5th grade. We're driving home from baseball practice, totally casual. And he goes, hey, Dad, a couple of the kids at school said that, like, girls suck on boys' penises. Is that a thing? And for him, there was no alarm to the question.
Yeah, he just never heard it before.
And he came and asked me about it. Now, I have an opportunity right there to freak out.
Yeah.
Or to match his tone. He has come to me casually asking a question with no alarm in his voice because he didn't know to have alarm about this when he talks to his dad. The last thing I want to do is teach him with my response that when you ask me about this, you should have alarm.
Yeah, you should. There's shame attached to this.
Exactly. So we just sat there and casually for 4 minutes. I said, well, actually, that's a part of sex. I'd love to tell you what sex is. Do you think you're ready to know? He goes, no, I don't want to know what sex is yet. I go, all right. I go, but in a couple of years when you go to middle school, we're going to have to talk about it, and I'll explain that more to you then. And he goes, okay. I go, do you have any other questions about it now? And he goes, no, I don't even think I want to think about it anymore. I go, great. But if you do, I need you to come and ask me when you have more questions, because I don't want you to get on the internet. And he goes, okay, I'll do that. Super simple. We didn't make it ruin the whole night because he came home and asked about oral sex. We just simply have reestablished, hey, we have a culture. You can talk about whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want to talk about it when you're talking to it with us.
Yeah.
We're going to answer any question you ask, because there's no such thing as the talk. There's a culture that we're trying to build where they're comfortable about asking those types of questions and having those types of conversations.
That's so good. Okay, how do people get in touch with you? What are some of the resources you have?
Yeah.
And what else would you like to say as we end this conversation?
Yeah, that's great. Moralrevolution.com. We have more resources than I could count. We have Date Well for men and women, for young adults that are wanting to know how do I get healthy and date well and actually have a relationship that can lead to marriage. We have Parent Well for parents that are looking for, and the Parent Well we've brought in, literal experts. We have a sexologist, a doctor of psychology from Wheaton College. We have a doctor of psychology that does connection codes, Dr. Glenn Hill. And we basically have brought in all the people that we've used personally. You're a part of it. We have a lot of great people here at Bethel that are part of it, that help resource parents on what to do. We have a series called Sex Church Culture for leaders. You go to our website, you could probably find a blog, a podcast, or a resource for just about any area, any topic of sexuality. If you're in a marriage and you're trying to recover from marital unfaithfulness, we have a course for you. And
wow.
You would go to our website, you'd be hard pressed not to find the topic that you need at moralrevolution.com.
And then on that website, from there, you can get to the Change website.
You can get to Change. You can get to Equip to Love.
Equip to Love, which are all dealing mostly with homosexuality, transgenderism.
And you're going to find stuff there, like we do a lot of cross-pollination. We have a lot of blogs that Ken and Elizabeth have written that are on the Moral Revolution blog page. So lots of resources. We are trying to create resources for every possible scenario that somebody would need.
Cool. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a lot. You're an amazing man. Love your leadership. Love Kate's leadership. And God bless you.